In Canto 4, Dante asks Beatrice to explain the theological problems raised by Constance and Picarda's placement in the moon, especially how they could be faulted for succumbing to force. Explaining to human beings that God is always fair is quite a problem. Beatrice compares it to the question posed by King Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel. The king dreamed he saw a figure with a golden head, silver arms and chest, belly and thighs of brass, and legs made partly of iron and partly of clay. He demanded that his wise men explain the meaning of the dream, without even telling them what it was. When they failed to do so, he had them thrown into prison. Daniel, who was then a hostage in the court of Babylon, explained the dream easily. To Daniel's right, we see the three holy youths who were the companions of Daniel's captivity and who were thrown with Daniel into a furnace when they refused to bow down to the king's idols. Protected by God, they all emerged unscathed from the flames. They do not appear in Dante's poem, but they are in the book of Daniel and were a popular theme for painters. At upper right, we have, left to right, Moses with a book written in what is meant for Hebrew, the Apostle John at center in heavenly blue robes, and John the Baptist dressed in the rough hides he wore when he lived in the desert. Beatrice states that Constance and Picarda are just as much in heaven as these exalted figures, and the angels, shown as little winged heads, who are stationed right beside them. Whatever place you're assigned in heaven, it's still heaven, and as such, no one can be discontented with their situation there. This next illustration to Canto 4 illustrates a scattering of images from Beatrice's argument. She refutes the notion advanced by Plato that souls descend from stars to be incarnated and after death return to them. A bearded Plato at left points to his theory in the sky. Beatrice also contrasts Picarda's and Constance's failed purpose with the resolution of St. Lawrence, who cracked jokes when he was martyred on a gridiron. Another example of willpower is provided by the Roman Mucius Scaevola. Captured in a failed attempt to assassinate a king at war with Rome, he gave an awe-inspiring demonstration of Roman courage by holding his hand in a flame till it was consumed. The enemy king abandoned his campaign when he saw how determined the Romans could be. Lastly, we are shown Alcmaeon, a figure of Greek myth, who slew his mother to fulfill a promise rashly made to his father. This was an example of a vow that should not have been kept. Here in Canto 5, Dante and Beatrice are still in the moon, and she continues to instruct him in the keeping of vows. In Canto 3, Dante said Beatrice was the sun which first warmed his heart with love, and the image of the sun in his bosom is repeated here. Beatrice is shown in a mandorla, an almond-shaped halo typically used to frame the figure of Christ in Majesty or the Virgin Mary. Here Beatrice is specifically shown in Mary's iconography. She stands on the crescent moon and radiates sunbeams, as Mary would to represent the sun of Christian revelation arising from the lesser light of the Hebrew, a development which she literally embodied. The canto opens with the lines, "If in the warmth of love I glow for you with an unearthly brightness, more than I can bear, don't wonder. Your eyes are dazzled, adjusting to the clarity and height your comprehension has attained." Words from Beatrice to Dante. This is an image which Di Paolo has depicted with feeling and elaborated with clever reference to iconography. At left we see that in Old Testament times, sacrificial offerings vowed to the temple sometimes admitted of substitutions. Nowadays, only the Church has the power to remit or alter vows once made, a double power indicated by St. Peter's gold and silver keys. A soul, naked because souls do not require clothing, bows in acknowledgement of the Church's power. At right we have two more vows that were kept but should not have been. The Old Testament patriarch Jephthah at left, and the Greek king Agamemnon to the right. Both vowed to sacrifice a living being to a deity without realizing that these would turn out to be their own daughters. In Canto 5, we have entered the Heaven of Mercury. At center we have Dante and Beatrice. The naked figures in this sphere are souls which have no need of clothing and are always shown naked unless they need to be identified. Dante does not at first see the souls as they are, but, as he tells us, as in a calm, clear fish pond, whose finny citizens glide to the side when someone comes along whom they suppose may have brought them food. Thus 1,000 little lights started towards us, and I heard them say to each other, "Welcome this one who'll add to our number, increasing the sum of love we can share in." As these lights came close, I could make out the shapes of the happy creatures, each one clothed in its own bright fire. The bright fire of Dante's lines accounts for the golden color. At center we have a final scene from Beatrice's discourse regarding vows. She says that Christians have the New Testament as well as the Old, and the Pope to be their shepherd in all such matters. The 4 human figures approaching the Pope are humanity being instructed in this by the Church. In Mercury, the heaven of just rulers, Dante meets the soul of Justinian, the Roman emperor who codified Roman law, shown in 5 volumes at his feet. Once again, the naked figures are souls who have merited this heaven. The illumination shows highlights from Justinian's speech. He relates how Aeneas, after the fall of Troy, brought Jove's eagle with him as his ensign when he became an ancestor of the Roman people. The eagle is shown on Aeneas' banner as the 2-headed eagle of the Holy Roman Empire. Aeneas enters an archway representing ancient Rome, with a pyramid indicating its conquest of the rest of the ancient Mediterranean. At center, Constantine, who transferred the capital from Rome to Constantinople, carries the eagle banner of empire into the new city. Finally, at far right, Justinian kneels before Pope Agapetus, acknowledging the spiritual primacy of the Roman popes. The 5th canto ends with the praises of Romeo di Villanova, who is shown radiantly framed by the Heaven of Mercury before Dante and Beatrice. Romeo is a historically inconsequential figure who serves only to introduce the genealogy of Clemenza, the present-day Queen of France, whose patronage Dante will request in the 9th canto. Romeo arranged for the marriages of Clemenza's great-grandmother, Margaret, to Louis IX of France. Likewise, it was due to Romeo that Clemenza's great-aunt married England's Henry III. Another great-aunt went to Richard, Earl of Cornwall, and the last great-aunt went to Charles of Anjou, brother of King Louis IX of France. This is what the shields ought to represent. The far left is the French royal fleur-de-lis, then the 3 lines of the English crown. But then we have the vertical stripes of the House of Aragon, interrupting the genealogy to remind us that this edition of Dante was commissioned by Alfonso V of Aragon, King of Naples. The last shield shows an azure semis of crosslets ficci and 2 barbels horient adorst, which is heraldic for 2 fishes back-to-back on a blue background with elongated crosses, the arms of the Duchy of Bar in northwest France. Again, the relevance is for the patron of this manuscript, Alfonso V, rather than to Dante and his characters, so we need not pursue this in greater detail. Romeo is shown also in the costume of a pilgrim, since Dante introduces him with the lines, "Romeo, returning from a pilgrimage to Santiago de Compostela in Spain, stopped at the court of Raymond Béranger, Count of Provence. There he made so great an impression, Raymond appointed him his chief minister. In this capacity, Romeo arranged royal marriages for all 4 of Raymond's daughters." The royal marriages in question are the main theme of the illumination. Romeo himself appears again at far right, a beggar, for Romeo's success earned him enemies who turned Count Raymond against him, made the Count suspect Romeo of treasonous ambition. This man who'd done so much for his patron, who'd repaid 12 for 10 every favor he'd received. Romeo left with only the staff and pack he'd come with years before, an old man begging his bread from strangers, asking for every crust, living by permission. Lines which suggest Dante's years in exile at the mercy of aristocratic patrons.